Fabulous. Okay, so welcome to today's webinar. Claudio will be doing all of the talking today. I am here, as always, looking after the questions, the chat box that comes in, and we'll be sending the webinar out to you afterwards. My name is Danusia Jolliffe, if I haven't spoken with you before, and I look after the clients once they've gone live here at TVision and Bevica. Claudio, over to you. As I said, I'll be monitoring the chat, and as questions come up, I'll pause for you.
Great, thanks, Danusia. So, right, so for those that don't know me, perhaps I'm Claudio. I look after Bevica. The purpose of today really is to highlight some of the new things that are coming in the product. I'll touch on a few of the Business Central ones, but most of this half hour is looking at the new things that are in Bevica that you can upload into your systems now and take advantage of. So from Business Central point of view, as usual, they've done a number of small little tweaks that are quite nice. So things like adjusting fact boxes, purchase amounts, PDFs, things like that. And then some more significant things, especially on the user experience. There on the top one on the right-hand side is one that I'm really looking forward to. Is on any list in analysis mode, you'll be able to bring in details from related tables. So you won't just be looking at the table, for example, sales order lines. You'll be looking at sales order lines, and if you want to, you'll be able to bring in any field from the item or from the customer or from the ship to. So that's going to be really nice to extend that kind of reporting. From a technical and co-pilot point of view, so on the technical side, the top two changes there are really about performance. So more efficient flow fields, that's actually quite a big change. So in the past, if you had lots of flow fields on a page or a list, it did impact performance a lot. That was whether you were looking at the flow fields or not. So they could be hidden, you might not be interested in it, but it was still calculating all those flow fields. The change they've made is it'll only calculate flow fields that you're actually looking at, and that's actually a really big thing. That's significant. And then the concurrent item-related postings, again, that's performance enhancement. Multiple people will be able to post anything to the item ledger, and there won't be record locking. Each posting will happen independently in its own time, the software managing how that happens. On the Copilot side, as I'm sure everyone knows, Microsoft are really pushing Copilot. Sales order agents and payable Copilot, so things AI, so looking at things like emails, purchase invoices, and then some nice little features like chat with Copilot, summarize with Copilot, all things that are in there that you can play around with, and if they're of use, you can kind of take advantage. So that's kind of the highlights that I've experienced in Business Central. A colleague, Ian, from our support desk did a What's New in Business Central webinar last week. That's available on our website if you want to go and have a look at that, and he goes obviously into a lot more detail than I just have. And then if anyone's interested in looking at the documentation from Microsoft, that long URL at the bottom there is the link to their Learn section, where it goes into a lot of detail and explains why they've made the change, how you take advantage of the changes, and so on. So two resources there to have a look at. From a Bevica point of view, I've split out what I'm going to go through into three sections. Bevica Essentials, then Fine Wine, Warehouse Integration, and Web APIs. So let's go into the first one. So Essentials is the core. Everyone has Essentials. And pretty much all of these things on screen here are things that we've been asked to do by customers. So there's nothing legislative in this particular list. It's all features that we've added to the software. So the top two, definitely it's all about managing alcohol percentage and making sure that we know the alcohol percentage that we're receipting into the software, so we're paying the right amount of duty. I'll show you how those work in a second. Sales line worksheet, hopefully everyone is using the sales line worksheet. We've added a feature called sort order, so you can replicate the order in which you've actually received your order on an email, for example, so it's easier to check and present back to the customer on an invoice, for example. There's a new inventory valuation report for paid reserves. But the one underneath that color I don't know how we missed it, but we never had a field for color. So that's been rectified. So there's a new field on the item record now for color. And then extra work on unpaid reserves, tracking of transfer orders, and a little bit of item workflow to make it more manageable if you're creating items. I'll show how that workflow happens. So I'm going to go into the software and just go through some of these now to give you an idea. So the first one was a percentage alcohol. So that's in two sections. So the first thing is making sure that the correct percentage alcohol is on the item record. So if I go to my duty codes, you'll see we have two new columns, min and max. So for every code that you have here, you put the min and the maximum that you'd expect someone to type in against a product that has that code, and the software will just check to make sure it's within that range. If you don't want to use this, just leave the field blank and it won't do any checking at all. But if you start populating them, then it will start checking. And the check is pretty much as you'd expect. I just go into an item, open up an item record. And for this standard wine, if I scroll down to duty, if I make that, say 25, you just get an error message saying it should be between 8.5 and 22. So nice little feature there to help avoid mistakes. And if you, for example, import in bulk, it'll still do the same checks. The other side of the checking that we've done on percentage alcohol is on purchase orders and sales returns. If I go to a purchase order, that is what I prepared earlier, hopefully. But, let's scroll down to the lines. You'll see we have a new column called alcohol percentage check. So if you want to use this, what you do is you put in the percentage that the warehouse has told you, or it's in some documentation. And when you tab off, if it doesn't match what's on the item record, it'll go red. If you then want to check what's on the item, you've got a little quick link on the side. And it's telling me that it's 14% for this particular product. If I then say, oh, actually the document was wrong and I want it recorded as 14, it goes black because everything's fine. So I'm just going to make another one incorrect and make that 14. So if you do nothing else, this is just a visual check that you can have a look at on the purchase order or the open purchase order line list, and it'll just tell you if your alcohol percentage is correct. But we've gone a little bit further. And if I go to Bevica Setup, into the duty section, I can decide what I want the purchase order to do. So if I set it to no action, it's just a visual check. If it's red, it means it's wrong. If you set it to warning, when you try and post, it'll say one or more of the lines are incorrect. Do you want to carry on? And then the user says yes or no. If you set it to error, it'll stop. So it'll basically just stop and say one of the lines is wrong. You have to go back and correct it. If let's set this to warning, come back out of here, just make sure we've got some stock to receipt. Yeah, if I post to receive, because one of the lines is wrong, it's immediately telling me that one of the lines doesn't match. I mean, in this particular scenario, I can say, yes, I want to carry on, or no, I want to go back. So if I say no, it tells me the process has stopped. I go back and I fix whatever I need to fix and carry on. So hopefully that gives people a bit of confidence that they're doing something to make sure the percentage alcohol is correct as you get your stock into the system. The next one was sales line worksheet and the sort order. So that's managed around sales order. So if I go into an order, we have the sales line worksheets. And the new column here is typically on the left-hand side, the sort order. If we leave that. So as I put quantities in, you'll notice that the sort order is populated with just a sequential number that grows as I put products in. I can, if I want to, change one if there's a mistake, so maybe make that an 8. And then the idea is when this is turned, when you confirm these lines and create the sales lines from this list, it'll create them in that order. So the idea is that you can replicate what the customer has given you. So the orders in the same way, it's easier to check, and then nicer for the customer to receive their posted sales invoice or logistics document in the same order that they sent it to you. I come out of here, go back to my role center and go to items. So I just wanted to show the color field. Not that it's particularly difficult to find, but if I just scroll down to the marketing section and flip down, you said it's not difficult to find, but then can't find it. Color, there it is. Now if I click on the lookup, you can decide what color codes you want, so it's completely soft. You go to Bevica Setup and create the codes. But I did want to also mention while we're talking about item attributes, that there are 20-odd soft fields called user-defined fields that you can create and set up and use for any other purpose. So you'll notice here I've got some examples. I've got channel, by the glass, acidity. So even if Bevica is missing a field that you think is important, you can create one of these user-defined fields and start using them in reports, in web APIs, all parts of the software that look at item information. And while I'm on Bevica Setup, the last thing in this section was to look at, the item, which is down the bottom. So the item workflow that I mentioned. So we have these 3 tick boxes. So whenever an item is created, if you tick one of these boxes, it'll automatically block that item, whichever one you've selected. So the idea is you might be creating 100 items, but you don't want the sales side of the software to look at them. So if you tick sales blocked, then automatically all be sales blocked, and then you can finish setting them up, purchase them, and then when you're ready, you can release them from sales block. So just a little tweak there on workflow. Oops. Back to the presentation. So the next section was the fine wine. We've done a lot of work on basically tracking and visibility across most of the fine wine area. So you can now assign standard lot numbers, serial numbers, and package numbers to paid reserves. The provenance and kind of information fields that are on paid reserve records flow throughout the system a lot more alongside the lot numbers and package numbers. On Cellarage, we've made it a bit easier to create sales invoices for different periods, different months, so it gives you more flexibility in how you want to charge customers. We have a new feature on the sales order where you can use a sales order to transfer stock from duty free to duty paid and charge the customer for the duty and the VAT. So it's as if they were withdrawing the stock, but the stock is retained in Bevica, just duty paid rather than duty free. A new way of splitting paid reserves and cancelling paid reserves if you need to cancel in bulk. In the past, it was a bit tricky because you had to select the customer at each stage, whereas now you can do it in bulk across multiple customers much more easily. So I just want to show a few of those. So back to Bevica. So if I go to paid reserves, I'll just explain the fields that we're talking about. We're into a paid reserve record. So it's these fields here, primarily, that we're talking about, that will now follow the paid reserve throughout the system. And even if you transfer ownership or broking, or do broking on the paid reserve, these will follow them if you wanted, and there's some setup that does that for you. So the way that that's used in the software, if I go to sales and orders, find an order for Ruth. And then, for example, if I use the get paid reserves to withdraw, so this is the selection page where you can pick from Ruth's reserves to withdraw. If I scroll across, you'll see we've added all those additional fields over to the right-hand side. Some of these will be hidden by default, but you can easily bring them onto the screen. But the idea is that if you have put information in there, there's no reason why, when you're talking to Ruth about withdrawing some stock, you can't see the sort of information that is held against those paid reserves. So you can pick the right one, in this case to withdraw, or to cancel, or to credit, or whatever you want to do. Let's just cancel that. Yes, I want to cancel that. The other feature that we've added to the sales order to do with paid reserves is get paid reserves to transfer duty. So I need to be on the duty paid order. Just check that that is duty paid. Oh, no, it's the duty free order. Let's go back. That's the duty paid one. So if I open that, so I need to be on a duty paid order. I would then select a duty free paid reserve. So prepare, get paid reserve to transfer duty. Edit the list, scroll across. Let's say I want to reserve, I want to transfer 2 of those. Okay, and then it adds them to the order on the lines with duty transfer type, and then we're charging the duty and VAT. And then when I post this, it'll obviously charge the customer for that duty and VAT, but just then in the background move the paid reserve from duty free to duty paid. And the last thing on the paid reserve section was the splitting and the lot numbers. So paid reserve journal. So again, we've added some extra features on the paid reserve journal. So again, against each of these, we've got the ability to add all these fields plus the new lot number, serial number, and package number. We can get the software, if the item is lot tracked, you can get the software to assign lot numbers automatically from a number series. If you're bringing in paid reserves from somewhere else, or if this is data migration, you can manually come in here and put the lot numbers in yourselves. The splitting is probably the last bit in this section. So I need to pick a customer. Just pick Ruth again. And if I do get paid reserves to split, so the idea here is that your original reserve might have been 12 packs or 6 packs, and you then want to convert them into bottles because you then want to dispatch bottles. The new feature, convert to base, if I select 2 cases from this particular reserve, then scroll over to the left. Where's my split? There we go. If I select convert to base, what that will do is the new feature will turn those 2 6-packs into 1 paid reserve of 12 bottles. So in some scenarios, that's something you might want to do. Oops, scrolling through. So the last section here of new features is on the warehouse integration and the web APIs. But just touch on the web APIs first. we're continually just adding more features to web APIs as people need or are exploring more bits of software that they need to integrate with websites. So the two kind of larger ones that we've worked on is new item related fields on the web product and the item APIs. So you've got more ability to filter and search on products, and then the ability to create, amend and delete customers and ship tos from the web. So if you give your customers the ability from the website to, let's say, create a new delivery point, that can be then integrated back into Bevica automatically. And also kind of new customer engagement, you can create customers from the website directly as well. On the warehouse integration side, we have a new role center that tries to help you understand what's happening from an integration point of view with the warehouse. So how many sales orders are still outstanding you might want to sell, if you've got any errors in integrating with the warehouse. And for vision managed warehouses, so warehouses like LCB, we've integrated their rotation line number. So they add an extra reference to a rotation number. If stock is moved within the warehouse, then we can now take advantage of that and then give them that piece of information so they know exactly which case to move. And we've also released the pre-advices to the warehouse. We've got the ability to send them purchase orders in advance of the stock arriving, so that they have got that already in the system, waiting for the stock to be arrive. And then a couple of people have mentioned that it's very difficult to see error messages both on the warehouse integration side and the communication engine side, because they are technically two different things. So what we've done is we've brought communication engine error messages into the Bevica side, so you've got one screen where you can see that all. That isn't quite released yet. That's going to be released tomorrow. So if that's of interest, then let us know, and as soon as it's released, we can tell you. But I can show you quickly what that looks like. So I just need to go into the development environment and go into my warehouse integration requests. And you'll notice here, so these are messages that are being sent out. So these could be pre-advices on the purchase order side, transfer orders or sales orders going out for Vision and other warehouses. We've added the request status and also the communication engine. So you can see here that it's been sent by one system, but the actual communication with the warehouse is errored. So hopefully it all being in one place makes life a little bit easier just to spot things that are going wrong. And then if you need to go to the communication engine directly, you can. We've added a little link there that takes you to kind of the more technical side to investigate any errors. Just quickly going back into the live site from the role center. If I scroll down at the very bottom, we'll see the warehouse integration tiles. So these are tiles that are looking at the previous screen we were looking at sales orders, purchase orders, transfer orders, and just trying to summarize what's going on. There's a bit of setup you can do on this. So the locations at the top tell you which ones of your locations are being managed by the warehouse integration. So you can have more than one, which is why we've got the blue and the bronze. You can then also put a filter, a date filter for how far back you want the software to tell you about things that are happening. So for example, you can put 1D, 5D as a date formula. And then the tiles just work like classic tiles where you just click on it. And in this case, it's telling me that there are 3 transfer orders that potentially should at some point be sent to the warehouse, but they haven't yet. So kind of that's your to-do list of orders that haven't been sent to the warehouse that might be. So I just scrolled through. Oops. Scroll through the slides. Essential spine line. So we're on the warehouse and the web APIs. So this session will be on bevica.com in a day or two, I'm guessing. And then just to let people know that every release we do, we write all the details in a bit more technical terms on Freshdesk with links to the articles that explain the changes that we've made. So if you're on Freshdesk and you type in something like Bevica releases, you'll find the core Bevica release, but there's also one there for the web APIs, for all the apps, in fact, that we have, so the warehouse integration as well. Okay, that was a whistle-stop tour of all the changes we've made. Do we have any questions?
We have had a couple of questions, first of all, someone said that on the What's New in Business Central webinar, Ian mentioned switching on and off again, and to check with you first. Could you just clarify what area that was in, please?
Yep, I had a chat with Ian, and he did mention my name. That was to do with the posting, the inventory postings. So, like I said before, one of the performance changes is that you can, the software can now post to inventory across multiple people without record locking. Ian was just being very careful to make sure that on the Bevica side we tested that and it works, and it does, so it's fine. People can set that up without any problems, and it will improve performance.
And the other was a bit more of a general question, saying that the functionality looks really good. When will this be available, bearing in mind the wave's happening soon?
Yep, so everything I've shown you, you can install today. You don't have to wait for the official upgrade from the Bevica Wave site. So it'll work on the upgraded version and the current version, because I am aware that we've halted temporarily upgrading to version 26 from the Wave, because there's a bug in a Microsoft feature that's causing a problem on Bevica. So we're waiting for Microsoft to fix that, and as soon as we do that, and we've tested it and it works, we will then tell support to go ahead and start planning the upgrades for people.
That's great, thank you. Those are the only two questions we had so far. I know what generally happens is that people start sending messages right towards the end as I'm about to click end. So if anyone has got anything further, then just get in touch and we can pass those questions on to Claudio. Thank you everyone for joining today and for those questions that we received. And this will be available on demand and will be shared soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks.